The Laughing Chai Walla, One Cup of Tea at a Time. Episode 2. Memories of Childhood and the First Lessons. I woke at dawn the day after Michael first came to my home, my mind churning with thoughts and recollections. My usual morning routine felt a little different, like something inside me had been awakened. After so many years of going about my tasks with the same predictable rhythm, rolling out my cart, lighting the stove, boiling the water, waiting for the early train, I now carried with me the awareness that someone cared to listen to the stories of my life. I arrived at the station just as the sky was transitioning from a pale grey to a gentle pink. The old banyan tree's silhouette stood out in the early light, its twisted branches like ancient arms reaching out to greet the day. A cool breeze, still tinged with the dampness of night, teased the ends of my hair. The first train from Chennai rolled in around 6 a.m., squealing to a stop with a trail of white exhaust. A small crowd emerged, still rubbing sleep from their eyes. The usual routine ensued, people dragging suitcases, children yawning, porters whistling for attention. I greeted them with my customary smile, offering steaming cups of chai. Among the early passengers, I noticed Michael walking briskly, taking photos of the train and the surrounding platform. He paused when he spotted me, waving enthusiastically. "Good morning, Gopal Anna," he called, weaving through the passengers until he reached my cart. "Vanakkam, Michael G," I replied, using the Tamil greeting for the morning. "You're up early?" He smiled, rubbing at his tired eyes. I wanted to catch that morning arrival. Plus, I couldn't resist a fresh cup of your tea. I gave a small chuckle, pouring him a cup from my large kettle. "Careful, it's very hot." He blew softly on the surface of the chai and took a cautious sip. Perfect," he said. "Shall we meet again this afternoon for more of your story?" I nodded. "Of course. Come around lunchtime. There's usually a lull then." He agreed and wandered off to interview a few travellers, scribbling in his notepad or snapping photos of local faces. I resumed my work, feeling a fresh spring in my step. It seemed everyone felt my good mood. A few regulars asked why I was grinning more broadly than usual, and I just shrugged. "What's different today, Anna?" "Oh, just the morning sun," I'd say. "But you look like a man who won a lottery." "In a way, I have." They laughed, not fully understanding my meaning, but that was all right. I had the distinct feeling that something special was unfolding, even if it was just in the form of shared memories. A passage of time and a bowl of pani puri. Around noon, after the wave of morning trains thinned out, the station returned to its typical midday lull. The fruit vendor, Lakshmi, dozed off under an umbrella, while the coconut seller, Velu, lazily sipped his own coconut water. The small snack stall next to the station was open, selling vadas, pakoras, and pani puri. I decided to treat myself to a quick snack and stepped away from my cart, leaving it in the watchful eyes of the newspaper vendor, Narayan, who was reading the day's headlines. Michael appeared right on time, the camera around his neck, his backpack half open and crammed with notes. When he saw me near the snack stall, he waved. "Anna, I was looking for you." I motioned him over. Come. Let's have some pani puri before we talk. You must try it. The vendor here is quite good." Michael grinned, ever the adventurous eater. "Absolutely. I've had pani puri once in Delhi, but I hear it's different in the south." So we stood by the makeshift table, the pani puri vendor deftly assembling the crisp shells, filling them with mashed potato, onions, and spicy sweet water. Michael's face lit up as he tasted one, watery filling dribbling down his chin. "That's tangy," he exclaimed, wiping his mouth. "And spicy. I love it." I laughed, finishing my own. Yes, quite different from chai, but a welcome treat. We found a shady spot under the station awning near the banyan tree. There, away from most of the noise, we settled onto a pair of old, wobbly stools. Michael took out his audio recorder and notepad, giving me an expectant look. "I'd love to hear more about your childhood," he began. You said you started working after your father died, but what was it like before that? Do you have any early memories of family or friends? I rubbed a hand across my chin, feeling the stubble there. Sometimes it's funny how memory works, how certain images come vividly to mind even after decades. Well, I said, leaning back, I remember a small village, the smell of freshly turned earth when the rains came. My father was a farmer's helper in those days, working on someone else's land. I remember chasing after goats in the fields. My mother would scold me if I wandered too far. Michael listened intently, occasionally taking notes. The hustle and bustle of the station felt far away, replaced by the echoes of my childhood. The village life. I continued. We lived in a thatched hut made of dried coconut fronds. In the monsoon, water leaked through the roof, and my mother would arrange pots to catch the dripping rain. She used to say the pots made music, tap, 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 sometimes lulling her to sleep. Michael smiled at the image. Sounds almost poetic. For me, it was just life, I said with a shrug. We were poor, of course, but so was everyone around us. I didn't realize how little we had until I was older. As a boy, I took joy in simple things. Playing marbles in the dusty courtyard, climbing trees to pick tamarind pods, running barefoot until my soles hardened. I paused, feeling a warmth in my chest at the recollection. Now, you see these new plastic slippers I have? I pointed down at my feet. They're a luxury compared to going barefoot all the time. But back then, we didn't fret about it. The earth was our playground. Michael nodded, his pen scratching across the notepad. And your parents? He prompted gently. What were they like before your father passed? At that, I closed my eyes momentarily, letting an image of my father surface. He was a tall man, taller than most in the village, with a stern face that lit up only when he laughed, and my mother, a petite woman, always cooking something aromatic over a wood fire. They loved each other deeply, I said. Even though times were tough, I never saw them fight except about small things, like if father forgot to fetch water from the well or if mother burned the rice. I remember once my mother jokingly threatened to throw a ladle at him, and he pretended to duck, making me laugh so hard I almost choked on my food. Michael chuckled. That sounds delightful. So, you had a happy childhood, in essence? I suppose I did, I answered, smiling. Happy, but short-lived, because when I was around 10 or 11, there was a terrible drought. Crops failed, and people in our village started migrating to the towns in search of work. My father came to Thirupaloor because he heard there was some construction happening near the station. He found a job carrying bricks and mixing cement. Eventually, he brought us here too. Is that how you ended up near the railway station? I nodded. Exactly. We settled in a small shanty in the slum behind the station. It was better than starving in the village, but not by much. At least here, we had the promise of daily wages. Michael jotted down a flurry of notes. So that's the beginning of your connection to this station? Yes, I said. I was just a boy, and these train tracks were new and exciting to me. I'd watch the locomotives roar past, the wheels clattering. I'd see the people leaning out the windows, rich, poor, from different states, some foreigners. It was like glimpsing different worlds all at once. The first chai, the first lesson. I paused, remembering the day my father bought me my first cup of chai from a tea seller on the platform, long before I became one myself. The memory came rushing back with surprising clarity. My father was finishing a day's work at the construction site, I recalled. He had earned a few extra rupees that day. As a treat, he took me by the hand and led me to the tea stall. I'd never had tea in my life. Milk was expensive, and sugar even more so. I could almost taste it even now. The warmth, the sweetness, the spicy undertone of ginger. I remember that first sip burned my tongue, I said, chuckling softly, but it also tasted like celebration. My father watched me with a grin, probably proud to give me such a luxury. Michael listened with rapt attention. It must have felt very special. It did, I said quietly. That was the first lesson I remember about chai. It can turn an ordinary moment into something memorable, a small luxury that makes life feel a bit sweeter. He lifted his own cup of chai, he had set one down while listening, and took a long sip, as if trying to merge my memory with his own experience. A swift turn of fate. I cleared my throat, the mood shifting. Of course, life changed drastically when my father died. He had a sudden heart problem. No warnings, no real signs. He just collapsed one day after work. I was maybe 14 or 15 at the time. Michael's eyes flickered with sympathy. That's so young. I nodded. Yes, we had no savings, no property. My mother's health was fragile. So I dropped out of school to find work. Education was a luxury I could no longer afford. He made a few quick notes, then asked, was it difficult to leave school? I laughed, but there was little mirth in it. Difficult? Yes, in many ways. But when survival is at stake, you don't question whether something is difficult or not. You just do what needs to be done. I leaned forward, my elbows on my knees. That's when I met Rahim Bhai, the old tea seller. He saw me wandering aimlessly by the station, asked me what I was doing. When I told him I was looking for any odd job, he took me under his wing. At first, he paid me just a few annas for carrying water, washing cups. But at least I had some money to buy rice for my mother and me. Michael's pen paused over the notepad. Rahim, how did he teach you the art of tea? A gentle smile tugged at my lips. He didn't just teach me how to brew tea. He taught me how to treat people. He said, Gopal, a good tea seller doesn't just hand over a cup. He offers comfort, a moment of respite, a conversation, sometimes even hope. Michael's eyebrows lifted. That's profound. Yes, I said, nodding. He was a wise man. He believed that tea was a metaphor for life. You steep in hot water, and that's when your true flavor comes out. Michael chuckled. He sounds like a philosopher in disguise. Perhaps he was, I agreed. He was the first to show me that the station wasn't just a place of transit. It was a crossroads of stories, a community of travelers. He taught me to always greet people with a smile, to ask how their journey was, to remember their preferences if they came often. The personal touch, you see? Michael tapped his notepad. And you've carried that forward for decades. I inclined my head in acknowledgement. Yes, and it has served me well. I may not be rich in money, but I am rich in goodwill, my friend. That's something you can't buy or sell. Revisiting the cart. The muffled announcements over the station loudspeaker reminded me that a train was due in 15 minutes. A small crowd was already gathering on the platform. Office workers returning from a half-day shift, a few students with backpacks, some families carrying bulging cloth bags. Shall we move back to your cart? Michael asked, tucking away his recorder. I nodded and stood up, brushing dust off my pants. Yes, duty calls. We can continue our talk tonight if you like. Or tomorrow. Tonight is great, Michael said. I want to get as much as possible while I'm here. We made our way back. I fired up the small kerosene stove, set the large aluminum pot of water to boil, and readied the tea leaves, ginger, cardamom. Michael watched quietly, snapping a few photos. A wave of passengers descended on us like a tide, each placing their orders with varying degrees of urgency. 1 cup, extra sugar. Gopal Anna, 2 cups, light milk. Sir, quick! The train is about to leave. I danced through my well-practiced routine, ladling hot chai, frothing it by pouring the liquid from one vessel to another in mid-air, all while greeting people with my usual, Vanakkam, sister, sir, friend, here's your chai. Michael captured the flurry on camera, occasionally helping me by handing out cups and collecting change. The station bustled with life. The train rumbled in, stood for a few minutes while people boarded, then rumbled out, leaving behind a swirl of dust and diesel fumes. As the crowd thinned, I wiped my brow and looked at Michael. "You see how it is," I said, half out of breath. "In the rush, everything becomes a whirlwind of activity." He grinned, an exhilarated look on his face. "It's fascinating. Everyone relies on you, not just for tea, but for a moment of comfort." I nodded. Exactly what Rahim Bai taught me. Evening reminiscences and a stroll. Nightfall found us once again sitting on the wooden bench near my cart. By then, the station quieted down significantly, with only a few stragglers and the occasional freight train passing through. The overhead lights buzzed with electricity, drawing moths into their luminous orbit. Michael turned on his recorder again, the red light winking in the dimness. "Shall we continue, Anna?" I gave a relaxed nod. "Of course. What do you want to know?" He flipped through his notes. "You mentioned your mother. What happened to her?" A pang of sorrow crossed my heart. She passed away not long after I started working with Rahim Bai. She had been weak for years, and the struggle of losing my father probably hastened her decline. One morning, I came home to find she had drifted away in her sleep as gently as a candle snuffed out by the wind. Michael's expression grew somber. "I'm very sorry." "Thank you," I said softly. "It was a dark time. I was left alone, without any immediate family. But Rahim Bai and his wife took me in. They didn't have much, but they shared what they had. I owe them my life, really." Michael leaned in. "That's beautiful, that they took you under their wing like that." I nodded. In India, especially in villages and small towns, the community often becomes your extended family. We might lack material wealth, but we share our burdens. That's how we survive. A brief silence passed between us, underscored by the chirping of cicadas. Then Michael said, "So, you worked with Rahim. How did you finally get your own cart?" I smiled at the memory. "It was on my 20th birthday, or close enough to it. Rahim decided he and his wife wanted to retire to their native village. His children lived there, and he wished to spend his final years with them. He handed me the cart, battered and old, saying, 'Gopal, I trust you to continue. Just promise me one thing. Keep serving chai with a kind heart.'" Sounds like a weighty responsibility. Yes, but I was thrilled. Over time, I made a few improvements, replaced some wheels, painted the sides. Then I started to experiment with flavors: ginger, cardamom, sometimes a bit of masala. Passengers liked it, and soon I was earning enough to sustain myself. Michael clicked off his recorder for a moment, leaning back. "That's an incredible journey. From a boy who tasted his first chai on this very platform to becoming the station's beloved Chai Walla." I chuckled. Life can be poetic in that way. We spent the next hour strolling along the mostly empty platform. Michael took photos of the station sign, Thirupaloor, in Tamil and English, and the flickering neon lights above the ticket counter. He wanted to capture the essence of the place at night, how shadows fell on chipped benches and old posters peeled from walls. I pointed out spots that held significance to me. The corner where I used to sit with Rahim Bai, counting coins at the end of the day. The bench where I napped if business was slow. The broken weighing scale that used to work when I was a teenager, but had long since rusted. He listened to each anecdote, sometimes laughing, sometimes turning thoughtful. Laughter and irony. At one point, we came across the station master's office. The station master, a portly man named Subramani, was dozing at his desk, lulled by the quiet. I gently knocked on the open door. "Subramani, sir." He stirred, nearly tipping his chair over. "Eh?" "Ah, Gopal Anna," he said, straightening his uniform cap. "You startled me." Michael suppressed a smile, while I kept my face diplomatically straight. "Apologies, sir. Just showing Michael G around." Subramani blinked at Michael. "Oh, the Australian journalist. Yes, yes, I've heard about you. So you're writing about our Gopal Anna, is that correct?" Michael nodded enthusiastically. He's quite the story. Subramani grunted in agreement. That he is. You know, he's been here longer than me, knows more about the station's comings and goings than even the official records. If you want real information about Thirupaloor, you should ask him. Michael laughed. I'm beginning to see that. Subramani yawned, pulling out a ledger. Well, I'm just doing the night shift. You folks carry on. We left him to his dozing, stepping back onto the empty platform. I couldn't help but chuckle. He's not a bad fellow, but sometimes he likes to remind me that he's in charge. Gopal, you must not leave your cart in the wrong place. Or, Gopal, no open fires on the platform. But we get along. Michael shook his head in amusement. It's funny how a place can have its own ecosystem, with each person playing a role. That's exactly right, I replied. We have the station master, the porters, the vendors, the passengers, the occasional policeman or ticket collector. Each is a thread in a tapestry. Over the years, I've come to know them all. Some are grumpy, some are kind, but everyone's necessary. Reflections. Under a flickering light. As midnight approached, we found ourselves near an old lamp-post that flickered in and out, casting a ghostly glow around our feet. The dog that roamed the station at night, whom I called Raja, trotted over and wagged its tail at me. I patted its head. Michael watched, smiling. You even have a dog friend? I shrugged. He's not mine alone, but I slip him a biscuit now and then. He's part of the station too. Michael took one final photo, capturing the dog, the lamppost, and me in the background. Then he looked at me, serious all of a sudden. Gopal, Anna, thank you for sharing all this. I feel like I'm just scratching the surface of your life. There's so much more. Your marriage, children. I want to hear it all. But not tonight, I suppose. I nodded, stifling a yawn. Tomorrow, then. I need some rest, and you probably do too. The station will always be here, and so will I. We said our goodbyes, and Michael headed off to his lodge, footsteps echoing against the station walls. I locked up my chai cart for the night, carefully placing the empty kettle and cups inside. I gave Raja a little pat, whispered, "See you tomorrow, friend," and made my way back to my tiny home behind the station. Inside, I lit a small lamp, the flame dancing shadows on the corrugated walls. I settled onto my thin mattress with a sigh. A wave of exhaustion mingled with a sense of fulfillment. It was strange. Talking so much about one's own past can be draining, but it can also be liberating. For years, I'd kept most of these memories tucked away, letting them fade like old newspapers left in the sun. Now, under Michael's gentle prompting, they were unfolding in vivid color, stories that demanded to be told and cherished. My last thought before drifting off was of my father, mother, and the dusty village of my early youth. It felt like I was that barefoot boy again, tasting his first cup of chai, brimming with hope for whatever tomorrow might bring. A note on the late night. I half dreamed of trains whistling through starry nights, carrying secrets and sorrows, joys and heartbreak. In my dream, I was pouring tea for all kinds of people, kings and beggars, dancers and priests, soldiers and children. And each time I handed them a cup, they smiled at me, grateful. When I awoke, the dream clung to me like morning dew, a gentle reminder that in some small way, my role in this world might be more than just selling tea. Perhaps, as Michael suggested, it was about bridging the distance between strangers, one warm cup at a time. Looking ahead. And so ended that day. But many more were to follow, each unveiling another layer of my story. Michael would keep asking questions, and I would keep answering, each memory bubbling to the surface like the froth on a fresh cup of chai. We hadn't yet touched upon my marriage, my daughters, or the challenges that shaped me into the man I am today. Those stories, full of humor, irony, heartbreak, and wisdom, were waiting in the wings, ready to be told. Little did I know that by the end of this journey there would be a twist so unexpected it would leave even me, an old tea seller who thought he had seen it all, completely surprised. But that is the nature of life, isn't it? Like a train that keeps rolling down the tracks, you never know for sure what station lies ahead or what story each passenger carries. All you can do is keep the tea hot, your heart open, and your smile ready to greet the next traveler.